What happens when a royal guest steps onto daytime television with charm in her smile, but a storm behind her words? What happens when a simple morning interview turns into a tension-fueled showdown and the cameras are still rolling? This wasn't just another celebrity sit-down. This was the moment everything went sideways. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. And when you do, tell me, if you were Mark, how would you have handled what happened next? The energy in the studio was calm, easy, what you'd expect from the set of Live with Kelly and Mark. The morning was already humming along, with the usual blend of lighthearted banter, a cheerful audience, and coffee cups cradled like accessories. Kelly Ripa adjusted a stack of blue cards, smiling wide. Mark Consuelos, dressed in a crisp navy blue suit, leaned into the table with the same casual confidence that made him a natural on the show. And joining us today, Kelly began, her voice light and bright. She's an actress, a humanitarian, and someone who knows a thing or two about royal headlines. Please welcome Meghan Markle. Applause erupted. The doors opened. Meghan walked in wearing an all-white ensemble, perfectly tailored, understated but designed to impress. Her walk was slow, calculated. A brief wave to the audience, a faint smile toward the hosts. She sat down between them, legs crossed, back straight. From the beginning, something was off. Not glaring, not dramatic, but it was there unspoken. "Welcome, Meghan," Mark said, offering a warm smile. "Great to have you with us." "Thank you," Meghan replied, not quite matching his tone. "It's good to be here." Kelly jumped in quickly. "We've seen you doing a lot lately. Documentaries, podcasts, events. You seem to be keeping busy." "Well," Meghan said, pausing just a little too long, "when you've lived through what I have, staying quiet isn't really an option anymore." Mark's eyebrows flicked up, a reaction subtle but not missed. He chuckled. "That's one way to put it." And that, right there, was the first crack. Meghan turned to him slowly. "I'm not sure what you mean." Mark leaned back, hands still folded politely. "Just saying people have different approaches. Some stay quiet, some write books, some go on Netflix." Kelly shifted in her seat, sensing it too. Meghan smiled, but it was tight. "Mark," she said, the name deliberate, like she was choosing it carefully. "I think when someone's been through the things I've been through, people should be a little more open-minded, don't you?" There it was again, tension, thinly veiled. Mark kept his tone even. "I think people are allowed to ask questions. That's all. We're in the business of asking." Meghan's smile faded just a touch. "Are you asking questions?" she said slowly. "Or are you repeating headlines?" Kelly laughed nervously. All right, let's bring it back for a second." But Mark didn't look away. "I'm asking you," he said, "why you think the world owes you something every time you sit down in front of a microphone." The silence was instant. Meghan blinked, just once. The audience didn't clap, didn't react. They waited. "That's not what I said," she answered. "No," Mark replied, "but it's how you sound." Kelly leaned in. "Let's pivot for a second, Meghan. Tell us about the children's foundation you've been working on." But Meghan didn't look at Kelly. Her focus stayed on Mark. "Do you really think this is about sounding entitled?" she asked him, voice lower now. "Or is it that I don't act the way you expect me to?" "I don't expect anything," Mark replied. "But I also don't expect guests to walk in here assuming they're above criticism." "And I don't expect daytime hosts," she countered, "to act like gatekeepers of public opinion." Kelly's hand reached across the table toward Meghan's arm, gently. "Hey, guys, really, let's keep this respectful." But the tension had moved past subtle. It was written into Meghan's jawline, the rigid way she held her posture. It was etched into the way Mark didn't smile anymore. "You don't get to be both victim and brand ambassador," Mark said, calmly but firmly. "And you don't get to play journalist and actor in the same sentence," Meghan shot back. Kelly exhaled. "Okay, we're going to take a quick break, everyone. Stay with us." But the cameras were still rolling, the mics were still hot, and nobody moved. The segment hadn't ended. The audience hadn't clapped. And Meghan had no intention of letting the moment slip. "You know," she said, looking at Mark, "it's interesting how men like you always want women to be silent until we're needed to decorate your narrative." Mark didn't flinch. "I don't need anyone to decorate anything, but I do think it's fair to say the world's heard a lot from you. And maybe, just maybe, they're tired of the same story told 10 different ways." "I'm not here to entertain your idea of what's palatable," Meghan said. "I came here thinking we'd talk about the work I'm doing, the progress, but I see now that you just wanted the soundbite." "No," Mark said. What I wanted was a conversation, and what you orchestrated was a confrontation. Mark glanced at the crew off stage, as if silently questioning whether anyone planned to step in. No one did. Meghan stood up not dramatically, but deliberately. She adjusted her jacket. "If this is how your show treats guests," she said, turning to Kelly, "then maybe the problem isn't me." Kelly opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Mark stood too. "You're welcome to leave, Meghan," he said, voice low, steady. "You've made your point." And without another word, Meghan walked off the set. No wave to the audience, no glance back, just a long silence trailing behind her. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The silence didn't last long. As Meghan disappeared behind the curtain, a soft murmur rose from the audience, unsure whether to clap or stay still. The energy in the room had changed, not tense-charged. The kind of shift that lives under the surface of a show too polished to fall apart publicly, yet too live to stop what's already begun. Mark remained standing. His hands rested on the edge of the table. He wasn't looking at the audience or Kelly. He was still watching the spot where Meghan had exited. Kelly leaned in, voice hushed. "You could have let it go." "I asked a question," he replied. "That's what we do here." Kelly shook her head. "No, you poked. You wanted her to react." She came in already on edge. "Well," Kelly said, tapping her earpiece, "now the control room's on edge too." A producer whispered something from behind the camera. Mark didn't respond. And then she returned. The curtain shifted again, and Meghan stepped back onto the stage. Her walk was slower now. Her smile was gone. Her heels clicked with each step, echoing like punctuation. "I'm not finished," she said. The crew hesitated. The audience went dead quiet again. Meghan didn't wait for permission. She sat back down, straight-backed, unapologetic. "I left because I thought I was being disrespected," she said, her eyes locked on Mark. "But I realized something else. You're not just trying to rattle me, you're trying to control the narrative." Mark didn't move. "You walked off, Meghan." "That wasn't me." "No," she said, "but you're used to people backing down. That's clear." Mark nodded slightly. "So let's talk then. You say you want to change the narrative, but every time you do, it sounds like the same monologue with new lighting." The words hung there. Kelly tried to steer again. Let's not turn this into a sparring match. Meghan, you said you wanted to highlight something meaningful, your work with displaced youth?" But Meghan raised a hand, eyes still on Mark. "This isn't a sparring match," she said. "It's a power play. And you've been doing it since I walked out here." Mark exhaled slowly. "You think asking hard questions is a power play?" "No," she said. "I think dismissing people with a smile is. You frame it as charm, but it's control." "You mean, like calling out hypocrisy?" he asked. "Like saying you're tired of being misunderstood while monetizing that misunderstanding?" "I'm transparent," Meghan shot back. "I talk about what happened because staying silent gives other people control of the story." "And yet," Mark said, leaning forward, "every interview circles back to you. Not the work, not the charity. You, the struggle, the burden. Always dressed in just enough grace to sound noble, but always about you." The audience still didn't react. They were locked in, waiting. "I didn't come here to be villainized," Meghan said, her voice sharp now. "I came here to talk about solutions." "Then talk about them," Mark said. "Talk about something other than what the palace did, or how the media treated you, or how the world never understood your pain." Kelly cut in, more firmly this time. "Okay, let's reset, both of you." But neither of them turned toward her. Mark's voice dropped an octave. "Here's the truth. You came on this show expecting a platform, not a discussion. But this isn't a court appearance, Meghan. This is live television, and people can see through performance." Meghan stared at him for a long second. Then she said, "And what do you call what you do, Mark? This posture of balance, this illusion of fairness? You don't care about truth. You care about control. And when you don't get it, you push, you condescend, you provoke." "I ask questions," he replied. "No," she said. "You challenge women when they don't behave the way you like." Kelly stepped in again, voice firmer now. "Hey, enough. We're not turning this into a referendum on each other. Either we move forward or we wrap it." Mark looked away for the first time, brushing a hand over his chin. The tension was beginning to buckle under its own weight. Meghan leaned forward. "You think I'm difficult," she said. "You're not the first. But that word difficult, that's a label people use when women won't shrink, when we won't soften our edges to make you more comfortable." "I don't care about comfort," Mark said. I care about consistency. You care about control, she repeated. Kelly looked to the producers again, but this time they didn't step in. No one wanted to cut away. Not yet. Let me be clear, Meghan continued. This isn't about me trying to win. It's about me refusing to be boxed in. You don't get to write the story and cast me as ungrateful just because I won't play along. Mark nodded once. Then he leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her. You know, he said, I've had tough interviews. Politicians, CEOs, athletes in scandal, but I've never had someone come in more rehearsed and more reactive at the same time. Because I've had to be, she said. You want me to be raw, vulnerable, but only if it fits your narrative. You want me to be strong, but not too loud. You want me to be likable, but not too assertive. I've lived in that contradiction long enough. Or, he said calmly, you've made a career out of that contradiction. Kelly stood up. Okay, that's it. I'm calling this. But Meghan stayed seated. You can cut the segment, Kelly, but the message is already out there. And Mark, just for a moment, didn't answer. His silence said enough. The audience sat frozen, unsure if the show would go to commercial or if they had just witnessed something entirely unscripted, unfiltered, and real. Kelly stood at the edge of the set, her body angled toward the crew, waiting for the red light on the camera to go off. It didn't. There was no cue, no break. No one from production had moved. And so she sat back down, slowly. Mark hadn't spoken since Meghan's last line. He hadn't broken eye contact either. And Meghan? She was calm again, too calm. The kind of calm that follows conflict, not peace. The kind that says we're not done. Do you want to keep going? Kelly asked quietly, her voice strained. I never stopped, Meghan replied. Mark shifted in his chair, finally. He spoke, but not to Kelly. You said people don't like women who won't shrink. Fair. But you came here pretending to have nothing left to prove, and everything about you this moment, this return, this anger, proves the opposite. Meghan let the silence stretch. Then, you mistake self-respect for defensiveness. No, Mark said. I see the line. I just think you crossed it about 15 minutes ago. A few people in the audience laughed under their breath. Meghan heard it. She didn't flinch. You enjoy that, she said, being the one with the last word, that smirk when someone pushes back. It's not a smirk, Mark replied. It's disbelief. At the fact that you think every time someone disagrees with you, it must be an attack. Kelly leaned forward again. This is not what the interview was supposed to be. But this is the conversation people are having, Meghan said sharply. Every time I speak, someone like him, she nodded toward Mark, wants to dissect the tone, the timing, the motive, never the message. Mark responded evenly. Because the message is always wrapped in defense, in injury. You don't offer ideas. You offer grievances. Meghan's eyes narrowed. And you offer what? Accountability? You sit behind a desk 5 days a week and call it journalism? You think asking pointed questions with a polite tone makes you some kind of truth teller? I think, Mark said, when someone comes onto this stage and they've built a public identity on trauma, then they should be ready to face a little scrutiny without calling it sabotage. The air in the room was different now, not just tense volatile. Every word felt dangerous. Meghan leaned in again, her voice suddenly softer. You know what your problem is, Mark? You're used to control. Control of the set. Control of the tempo. You think you're measured, but you're not measured. You're guarded. You're scared of what happens when a woman doesn't let you steer. I'm not scared, he said. No? She asked. Then why are you still responding like this is a competition? Mark didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened slightly, but his expression stayed composed. I respond when people try to make everything about them, he said. Especially when they walk in with a message dressed as a mirror. Look at me. Look at how I reflect your injustice, your ignorance, your failure to understand. It's exhausting, Meghan. And yet, she said, you're still speaking. Kelly tried again. This was never meant to be personal. But it is, Meghan said. It always is. When you ask me to sit in this chair and then demand I shrink into a digestible soundbite, that's personal. No one demanded that, Mark said. We asked you questions. You didn't like the tone. You didn't ask. You challenged. You framed. You need me to fit into a story arc you've already written. Mark sat back, arms crossed now. Maybe because you never let the story be about anything else. And maybe, Meghan said slowly, you've been so busy looking for hypocrisy, you missed the humanity. That line landed. Not with the crew, not with Kelly, but with the audience. Because they finally started to shift, to murmur, a low noise, not quite support, not quite discomfort. Kelly looked at both of them, then spoke again, clearly trying to take back control. Meghan, if you could just take 1 minute to explain the mission of your foundation and where people can learn more, we can close on something meaningful. Meghan looked at her, finally breaking gaze with Mark. The mission is simple, she said. To protect the young voices that haven't been given a seat at any table. The ones who don't have platforms, who aren't allowed to walk out when they're misunderstood, who don't get asked back. Kelly nodded. And how can people support that work? Meghan started to answer, but Mark interrupted, his tone flat. Before we end this, I have to ask one more thing. Kelly didn't try to stop him. Mark turned back toward Meghan. His voice was calm again, too calm. Do you think people are still listening to you because they care, or because they're waiting to see if you finally say something real? Meghan blinked. Slowly. I think people are listening, she said, because I'm still standing. And that bothers you. Mark nodded slightly. No, it doesn't bother me. Then he leaned in. It just doesn't impress me. Meghan tilted her head. Well, she said, I didn't come here to impress you. She stood up again. This time, no hesitation, no pause. She adjusted her blouse, turned to Kelly. Thank you for having me. Kelly gave a tight smile. Thank you for coming. Meghan looked back at Mark one last time. You may think this was a win for you, she said, but all you did was show your audience exactly what they came to see. Mark didn't respond. This time, when she left, she didn't look back. The curtain fell behind her like a door slamming shut. The curtain settled. Her footsteps faded behind it, but the weight of what had just happened still sat thick in the studio air. No music played, no transition cued. The control room was silent. Kelly broke first. She exhaled sharply and glanced at Mark, who hadn't moved. His hands rested on the table, fingers laced loosely. His eyes were forward, unfocused. You okay? She asked gently. He didn't answer. Kelly glanced toward the cameras. Still live. Well, she said, voice light but threadbare. That was a conversation. Mark finally blinked. He rubbed his chin, then sat back in his chair. Still no smile, just thought behind the eyes. That was a monologue disguised as a mission statement, he said quietly. Kelly didn't argue. She turned her cards over and stacked them neatly, almost ritualistically. You went harder than usual. She came in armored. She came in expecting pushback, not a courtroom. Mark glanced sideways. I didn't cross a line. I didn't say you did. They sat in it, whatever that silence was. Not regret, not victory, just aftermath. Kelly finally broke it. You know they're going to replay that clip on every network for a week? Mark nodded. Probably. And social media's going to pick it apart. Every word. I didn't insult her, he said. I held her accountable. You questioned her motives, Kelly replied. On air. She questioned mine. Standing up doesn't make her right, it makes her loud. Kelly tapped the cards again, but didn't speak. Mark leaned forward slightly, more to himself than to her. You know what really struck me? The moment she walked back out here. She didn't come back for clarity. She came back to win. She needed the last word. Kelly turned toward him. And so did you. That hit. Mark looked at her, and for the first time, something flickered behind the composure. Not guilt, not defeat, just awareness. He leaned back, voice lower now. We both did. A few people in the audience clapped quietly, not sure if it was appropriate. A nervous chuckle followed. The kind that always surfaces when something uncomfortable brushes against something familiar. Kelly shook her head. I just wish she'd said more about the foundation. She had the chance, Mark said, but she wanted the moment instead. Maybe she needed both. He didn't respond. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was reflective. Kelly turned to the camera. Well, that interview was not what we expected, but we appreciate honest conversations, even when they're uncomfortable, maybe especially then. Mark stayed quiet. She continued, that was Meghan Markle, and yes, you just saw what you saw. She turned to him. Anything you want to add? Mark looked into the camera. His voice was steady. No edits, no spin. That was live. Kelly paused, then gave a short nod. We'll be right back. The red light on the camera finally dimmed, but the echo of that exchange lingered. No one rushed onto the set. The crew didn't speak. and the audience stayed seated, staring at the space where a guest had sat twice and left twice without ever really leaving. Because something had shifted, not just in the show, in the way a simple interview stopped being polite and started being real.